in.
It's great to be here. This was one of the easiest ones I had to do.
It was like a 15-minute drive for you, right?
Texas is a big state.
Yeah.
I bet. I want to know, a boy I heard was born in Missouri, right? By way of Port Arthur. How did you make it here into Hill Country?
Right. So this is a interesting story, but it's a good one for me in that you appeal to all types of people when you come from such a diverse background. My dad was fought in World War II, at the end of World War II, and a civil war in Greece. My dad was born in Greece.
Oh.
Okay. So when he came to America, he met my mom. She's U.S., and she was a small town girl. Dad owned a laundromat. Just nothing really, big story there. But he meets this girl, and he goes to work at a local hospital, right, as an orderly. Gets accepted to medical school, right, because he was really good. He'd been in wars. He was good with his hands, stopping wound, bleeding on the battlefield, just as a partisan fighter against the Nazis and the communists. And he goes to medical school in Missouri, right, where I was born, in Kirksville, Missouri. So I never stepped foot on the soil because I was a baby. So he left there and he went to his residency program, Atlanta, Georgia. Well, north of Atlanta, a little bitty town north of Atlanta, Georgia. And eventually I ended up as my home of record, Oklahoma, across the Red River, just to the north.
We'll forgive you for that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I'm not a Sooner. Okay. My program was Oklahoma State. So, but I left for the military in 1983, and I have not ever really gone back home to live other than, visit family and stuff. I left and I went into the infantry. My dad's a patriot. He's passed now, but he was a patriot. He said everything that we got for this country, and he became a U.S. citizen legally. Did his time. It took him 7 or 8 years. He got it. Became a naturalized citizen. So, and he did really well. Family doc. I used to ride around with him in the pickup truck and, a little black bag and I hold it on the seat. We'd go around and do house calls and all that stuff. It was really neat. And I learned a lot about medicine as far as the art of medicine and really people. I became a people person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that was an inspiration for me. But he said, when you're 18, because I graduated high school a little bit early, when you're 17, you're going to join the Army and you're going to give back to this country what our family has. He was very much old school in that sense.
And your response was, yes, sir.
And my response was, yes, sir. And I had, my mom's brother, Korean War veteran, uncles, Vietnam. So I grew up in a family of
military
just patriots,
family, yeah.
patriots. And so with my dad especially, America was number one, nothing else. We didn't learn how to speak Greek in the household. I learned it through the years. But I'll tell you, it was an inspiration for me, his story. So I joined the Army. I did my time. Nothing was happening. This was 1983. Ronald Reagan was the president.
Oh, yeah.
When I was at Fort Benning Infantry School, they were jumping into Grenada. Very few people remember that little skirmish that we had down in an island. And then Panama came along, but I was never deployed. So I went ahead and got out. I had an injury, broke my leg, had pins and screws and plates in my leg, and this will come into play here in a second. And they said, you'll never jump out of a plane because you got all this hardware. And you'll never be a Green Beret. And that's what I wanted to be. Way back when I was a kid, because I saw a John Wayne movie, literally, called The Green Berets. And
I remember that. That's a great movie.
It's an old movie. It's a little bit hokey compared to movies nowadays.
I loved
it. No CGI in those days, but great movie. And I love John Wayne movies.
Yeah.
True Grit's my favorite one.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to do. And my heart was broken because I couldn't do it. So I'm like, well, I'll get out. I'll go to college. And I'd already been taking some college classes in the military at night. And so I got out and I went to college. And because my dad was a doctor, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this medical stuff and just see. Now here's a guy that goes to a medical school, and I took my MCATs, that goes to a medical school, University of New England, it's out in the East Coast, and consider themselves kind of Ivy League-ish. And I show up there and they're like, now, first of all, you're not from here.
Yeah.
Second of all, you are an infantry guy. You don't have any volunteer service. You don't have any studies that you've worked on. You don't have any research. And I was like, nope. I said, but I want to go to your medical school. And I want to go back in the military because that's what I was going to do as a doctor. And they gave me a chance. There was one guy on the staff that was a Marine at the Chosin Reservoir in the Korean War. and he heard my story. He was the dean of students. And he came out in the hall and he said, we've only got 3 seats left. We got 40 applicants out here in the hallway. You've got one of the seats.
You got to fight 39 of them.
Now, I would have won that one. He goes, and he was a little bitty guy. He was like Yoda, I'm looking at this guy and he's knife hand in my face. And he goes, and don't, expletive up. And I'm like, okay, I won't mess up. And so he allows me to come in because he said, those guys were looking at you like, you're just a nug. You're just an Army nug. Why would we want you to come to our medical school? Even though you took the MCATs and you did well and all this, but, you don't fit the bill.
Sure.
You're just not the norm here. And you got a cowboy hat on too, by the way. And so it was in the hallway. But he gave me a chance. And it was just the beginning of a lot of chances that led to where we're at now.
Yeah.
And so Beaumont. So I got done with internship.
Good old Beaumont, Port Arthur. Yeah.
Port Arthur. I was actually in Port Arthur mostly. That's where I lived. I lived in West Orange for a while in a trailer park, but I got robbed, so I moved back down to
my best friend's from Port Neches, and her father was a physician there too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Port Neches. So I worked in all the hospitals. There was a little bitty hospital in Port Arthur I worked out of, and then I did rotations in St. Mary's, St. Elizabeth's. So those are the big hospitals in Beaumont's. And then I went and did rotations up in like the Gun and Knife Club of the world, Jasper and Woodville. Jeez. And then I did some trauma stuff, with a lot of the offshore stuff. So I'd jump on a bird. We have a burn. I'd go down there and pick people up. And then ended up doing a rotation in MD Anderson. So some good training there.
You weren't in the military at this time.
I was in the reserves.
You were in the reserves.
Because I was going back to the military.
But you weren't a Green Beret at that point.
No, sir. So, no. I wanted to be.
Okay.
I wanted to be. But I knew that probably was never going to happen at this point in my life. I was getting older and it was kind of like, well, maybe we'll let that go, but I can still go be a doctor for the Green Berets.
Gotcha.
That's what my intent was.
Okay.
How old were you around this time?
30s.
30s.
Yeah, 30s. And so still within the age, but, just didn't happen until. So we do Beaumont, Port Arthur, and then 9/11 happens as I'm finishing up residency. And so now I'm going, all right, that's it. I'm back in. And so I go to the 19th Special Forces Group, which is a guard unit, just so that I can get in. So it took about a year to do that. So by the time 9/11, it was about the end of 2002 that I finally got back in because it takes a while. Can't just come in off the street.
And no reservations because you had pins and the surgery and you.
Well, I got those taken out.
Oh, okay.
I forgot that part.
All right. You didn't do it with a pair of rusty pliers, did you?
I went to orthopedic surgeon friend of mine. I said, I've got to pass the physical. I've got to get around the waiver, and I need these pins and screws taken out. And they did it, right? It's a friend of mine. He's in residency. So I'm like, okay. So we did that and got all that stuff taken out. I go apply. I get in. No problem with the waivers. Didn't have to deal with hardware they call in your extremities. So was able to get in. So I went and went to the 2nd Battalion, 3rd Special Force Group, Fort Bragg. But just prior to that, I had put a request in to go to Special Forces training. And they said, there's no way we don't send doctors. I was like, how can we do this? Okay. So then I went back to the headquarters, United States Army Special Operations Command headquarters, walked in and said, here's my resignation letter. I'm resigning my commission as an officer, and I'm going to go back to being an enlisted guy. There was nothing they could do. They'd have to send me to the Q course, qualification course.
Interesting, yeah.
So the first thing they did was, we're going to send you to the shrink. Right, the first thing they said. Seriously. Now, at this point, I'm a major. And I'm a little bit older. This was in 2010. I'd been a Green Beret physician, not a qualified one, but a physician in the sense that I was not a Green Beret, but been assigned to them since 2003. So this is 2010. We've been going, I've already been downrange to Iraq. I've been to at least one Afghanistan trip, a few other countries in between. And so I do this resignation letter. They send me to the shrink down the hall, literally went down to him. And unbeknownst to me, I went to medical school with Bob. I can't say his last name.
Yeah, jeez.
United States Army Special Operations Command psychiatrist.
That's who you know.
I went to med school with him. I'm like, Bob. And he goes, Pete, what are you doing here? I said, you're crazy.
They think I'm crazy.
Yeah, I'm crazy. And he goes, well, we are just crazy enough. We jump out of planes for a living. But yes. So I'm like, okay, so you're going to sign this, right? He goes, well, I got to put you through this battery of tests. I'm like, dude, I know your secrets from medical school, right? So he's like, I'll take this command. So he walks down the hallway, and I really didn't have anything bad on him, but just messing with him. But he takes it down the hall to the general, to the 1-star at the time, General Sokolic. He calls me down the hallway and says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I've been doing this since 2003. I believe I've earned the right to go to the course to get the full qualification." And I've been deployed. I've been, at that point, already been wounded in Iraq, in 2004.
So you were in your late 30s at this point.
At this point now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because by the time I get to selection, I'm in my 40s.
And the average age of the guys that go through
25
I was going to say,
32.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, Grandpa.
Exactly. But because I'd been in the unit for a while, I stayed in great shape because I always worked out with the guys every morning. So I was just as fit,
Sure.
older. Yeah. But there's something to that because when I went through selection, which is 3 weeks, I mean, it's the Navy has Hell Week. We have Hell 3 weeks. We just don't write books about it, right? So we
damn wussies.
Yeah, those SEALs. Love them too. But I go through this course, get selected, which means I can go to the Q course. Q course is a 1.5 years long for me. It was the phase that I went through was the officer phase. So I go through that. Go back to 3rd group, and now I'm a fully qualified Green Beret. Well, that then puts you in a different category because I'm the first one in the United States Army inventory at that time. Right? Back in Vietnam era, they had a few, but this has been a long time since they've allowed that.
And so you are, just to clarify, you're enlisted now at this point, right?
Yes,
You're not.
I was an officer.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't resign because they wouldn't allow me to.
Okay.
Yeah, I went in there to do that, and I was going to go back to being a sergeant, but they were like, "No, we're going to allow you to go through." As an officer, as a major, and definitely over the age.
And so you're the first person that they've allowed.
That they're allowed to do
amazing.
that. And then we ended up getting 5 total. So that was good because they started that program, and then at some point they had enough. I think they had 12 doctors apply, and we got a total of 5 through. That's just attrition rate of anything like that.
Yeah.
So you were then stationed with the Green Berets and as a doctor. Okay.
As a doctor, but then capable of going to closer to the X. When I say the X, that's where the battles are happening.
Okay.
It's the place where bad things are happening.
Yeah.
But it was more than that. It was the ability then to be involved in the planning process for operations. Because now I knew from the officer side exactly the types of missions that we were doing and how to help plan.
Okay.
You don't learn that stuff in med school.
Sure.
You learn a little bit, but nowhere near what we needed. So I became an expert at planning and operating large level missions in the special operations sense, but also how to liaise and how to combine, with different joint operation forces, including many different countries. And as an officer, as a Green Beret officer, I did that. I would go out and be in Africa, or I'd be in Jordan, or be in Greece, or all these other places, and coordinate missions with other countries. So that I put different categories.
We could do a whole podcast on your military career. Seriously, we could, because we love all that kind of stuff. But I want to kind of go into what you're doing now. Yeah. So you've decided to throw your hat in the ring for governor of the great state of Texas, and you have never been a political figure on any level. Why governor? Why the first time you're doing it? Why governor?
Let's start with governor.
And I say this, and even though I was not a general, I had enough years in between active guard and reserve, so I have enough experience. There was a guy that came from Sherman Denison area, born there, that when he left World War II, came back, and he went right for president. It was Dwight D. Eisenhower from Sherman Denison, originally raised in Kansas, but he kicked off his campaign from Texas to run for president. He went straight for the top.
Yeah.
And this was not an idea of mine ever to do. If I would do anything in politics, I would have run for a sheriff. That was my something I could do. But for me, it wasn't the quest of my life, because I'd left the Texas Military Department, did 8 years with the Texas Military Department, so that's the Texas National Guard. And when I left that, it was because I did informed consents, and they said, you got to give the soldiers shots. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So they pulled me off the border. I was on Operation Lone Star, and I started working on a counter-human trafficking operation. And that's really where I kicked off the idea, or not the idea, but the idea to get to a different level.
Okay.
So that I could maybe liaise with the state on counter-human trafficking. I would go and talk to the Texas Rangers. I'd go talk to DPS, whoever I could, so that we coordinate liaising, as I used to do. And I've talked to kings downrange. I've been in just about 10 embassies downrange where I deal with diplomats. So I can do that. But it was a group of people in Bonham, Texas, probably about May of this year, that came to me and said, we want you to run for governor of Texas. Now, this was an ambush, by the way. I've been in an ambush, and I can sense an ambush. It was
plotted and planned.
It was up north in Bonham at a family's house, and they had people from all over the country that were there. And they sat down with me and said, would you consider doing this? This was at a campfire, like it was really like total ambush. I said, whoa, no, not at all. Not at all. This is logistically impossible.
Yeah.
If you just look at the logistics of it. But these were faith-based people, Christians, that said, but we want you to consider it. Pray for it. Pray about it. So the mistake that I made, I guess if you could think if there was a mistake in this, would be careful of what you pray. Because if you ask your will be done, Lord, whatever it is, let me know. I said, I'll give you a week, folks.
Oh.
So at the end of the week, I kept hearing yes, yes, yes. But it wasn't just my perception of what I was hearing. It was based upon other things that were happening. The day I left that meeting and I started driving to a counter-human trafficking event that we were going to do in Mississippi, I got a call from an attorney, well-known. I'll keep his name off the record because I promised I would. And he said, I'm down here in Mar-a-Lago, and your name came up, and would you consider running for governor of Texas?
Jeez.
And I'm like, Did you talk to some people up in North Texas recently? Just yesterday. He said, no. I know one person there, but no, I didn't talk to anyone. So that was just a confirmation. Okay, but it's not the complete confirmation.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, that's not really a sign, Lord. I'll just keep going. So a week later, I said, okay, Lord, please just say no. That's my prayer. Because I know what we're up against.
Can you make your will no, please, Lord?
Please make it no. And so, and having worked directly and briefed directly with the governor of Texas, I have nothing against the man personally. He's the governor of Texas. I respect all positions. But I just felt like I knew too much when you compare optics and reality of what politics typically does. So I said, now I'm going to feasibility study this thing. So I called Alan West. I called General Flynn. These are people that I know real well.
Sure.
I called some other people, Chad Prather. Know what you guys went through.
All who ran against
What
Abbott.
do you think? First one I talked to, Alan West. Absolutely, Pete, you need to do this. I'm like, I thought you'd say no. He goes, no. Politics hasn't changed, but the country has. We're in a different state of security. We need somebody that has like a wartime president.
Yeah.
You need to have a wartime governor.
Sure.
Now, the war you don't see. It's not. This is an insidious onset type of war. This is something that might be likened to a color revolution downrange.
Yeah.
It's a war for the heart and the minds. And so that's really what we have to have, because you got to have someone that can act without doing a poll first.
I was going to say, the fact that you're not a politician, in my mind, is a benefit. Like somebody that's been brought up through, from city council to, Texas rep and all that. They've got so much baggage and so many like preconceived notions about what you need to do good.
That's it. And so as I've been doing this now since, we kicked off in July the 4th. We had to spend a month on the Guadalupe, but we been really kicked off in August. The things that I've learned since August to now, which is a short fuse, is tremendous with regard to that specific statement. Because what people are saying to me is, I was down in Hondo last night in a group of, a CEC down there. We don't want politicians anymore. We're tired of it. Trump's not a politician. I'm not liking myself to him at all in any way. But sometimes you need somebody to come in and break the mold of whatever it was that was not working.
Yeah.
And I got to break the mold.
Sure.
I agree. I think what's important to us also to understand is that this wasn't something, or that our listeners, this wasn't something that was ever on your radar. This was something that was kept being presented to you. And so with that, what we decided to do is we took it out to our listeners and to the people here in Dripping Springs. And I was talking to Steve, and I said, I always feel like it's the Austins and the Houstons and the San Antonios, the San Antonians that always get the news coverage. And us, as being a small town, we're the heartbeat of Texas. And so we had a lot of questions from our listeners. And so what we thought we would do is we would go through the issues that are important to you off of your website and just kind of pepper you a little bit with some of the questions. One of the first ones that we have is, especially on your website, was you're securing the border and stopping the human trafficking.
Right.
From myself, I'm a Rio Grande Valley girl, born and raised there. I still have family there. And I know what is going down there. And a lot of people were talking, I guess we had one of our listeners, Sylvia, we had Edie, talking about border security. And why is this any different, what you want to do, what Abbott is doing now?
Right. Okay. Well, having worked for him and employed the techniques that he wanted us to do, I would say that 5 years ago, roughly, 4 years ago, there was a bunch of, we had 17,000 Haitians show up in Del Rio in 24 hours. Okay, so we met them. And I got called out, and we were there on the ground when they showed up at night, and it was about 40 of us. And we held the line as long as we could, but you can't hold the line against 17,000 people. When the sun comes up, they figure out how to get around. And I saw what we did as a state, and I didn't agree with it. I personally, in that hangar, briefed the governor on what should be done. And I said, we need to bring special operations forces. Texas has one of the largest National Guard unit in the country as far as capabilities go. And we need to stop their money. We need to call them FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, what they are. And I'm not talking about the numbers of people coming across. That was what created the seams and gaps of chaos. But looking for a needle in a stack of needles is a hard thing to do. And so the tourniquet has been put on now with Trump, and it's great. But the 1,000 tiny cuts that we've got that are already infiltrated into the state, tens of millions over the Biden administration came into the country. And the right answer was not to aid and abet an invasion of people by putting them on buses and sending them further into the country. That's actually, that's aiding and abetting. Whether you can legalize your way out of it or not, it doesn't matter. And we're not talking about accountability, although we are. We're not saying we're going to go after anybody who did that. We've got to stop, truly, the bleed that's already here. And so there are ways to do that. So we gave that recommendation post 2 teams of Green Berets doing a threat vulnerability assessment on the border. Best and brightest when it comes to this stuff.
Wasn't he being stopped, though, at every single turn by the last administration, though, as well? So was that, and now we have a new administration that we're all about.
If all you did was pay attention to media, not social media, if you paid attention to large mainstream media, you would think that. Exactly. Because the game that was played in down in the park, Mabry Park down there in Eagle Pass, the game that was played, remember the wire? We're going to fight over the wire. Literally a mile upstream and a mile downstream for that, people are just walking across.
So funny.
Right? Because I was there. That's Kimato.
Made for TV.
It's made for TV. Same thing in RGV. Okay, so RGV is a prime example of that, Rio Grande Valley. The city of Roma, where I spent most of my time on the bluffs looking at Miguel Alemán on the other side of the river, that's a contested area for cartels. 2 different factions
It always
fight over
has
that.
been, yeah.
And they have gunfights every week. There's a gunfight. And people go there and just to watch it and just sit up on the bluffs and watch because it's, watching the town light up at night. But the same thing happens there. They would send a group of people across, 900, 1,000 people in 3 hours. And then on the left and right, the periphery, here comes the ones with the guns. Here comes the ones moving the human bodies, the ones that they want to traffic, right? And instead of us being allowed to do what we really needed to do, they gave the leadership over to the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Border Patrol. Now, the Border Patrol are federal agents, right? So we fell underneath, in many ways, the federal agents and what they wanted us to do, which was to sit at a static location with binoculars and count how many people were coming across. So counting heads does not equate to security.
That's a good point.
Do you think that the battle for the control of the border, meaning stopping the people coming in, you think that battle's won now, or is that just an ongoing thing?
I'm going to call it it's State Department armistice. Because if we'd say to the president of Mexico, we're going to have terrorists put upon your head if you keep allowing this, I guarantee you, and I saw her do it, all of a sudden more federales are at the ports of entry, and they're stopping what's coming. Now, it used to be when I was in the air flying over that particular location in Del Rio and in Roma, I'd be flying as a command and control guy. So I'm watching from above sometimes, a lot of times on the ground. But I'm watching it. The federales were pushing them. Okay, the federal forces were pushing them to the border when they had thousands because they wanted them across the border.
There was really not even a border during the previous administration, was there? I mean, there was not much.
It was being used, what Michael Yon calls human osmotic pressure. This is a technique to destabilize, to disenfranchise the populace who's on the side receiving them. Because it overwhelms every system that we have.
And that continues.
What was you said in your statement, your issue, stop the bleeding, declare a hybrid threat emergency.
A hybrid threat, yeah. So a hybrid threat means made up of several different vectors. Okay, so the hybrid threat would be, we're pushing people across. Now, what's going to happen in the next administration after Trump? Are we going to go back to what that was? We don't know. If we don't have a plan to go after the hybrid threats, which don't just come from the south side of the border, they come from not only Canada side. We can't do anything about that from Texas.
New Mexico.
They can come through New Mexico.
Let's put a border up in New Mexico and Texas.
So we got a problem there for sure. But the hybrid threat comes in different ways because it's insidious, so you don't see it. So there are factions that are inside the state. Tren de Aragua. All right, that one came across in 18th December 2 years ago. I was there not as a military guy, but as a person that was observing it to try to figure out where are they going. There were 12,500 Venezuelans that showed up overnight in Eagle Pass. The state of Texas put them on buses and sent them to the convention center in San Antonio. And we followed them. And we followed every one of them. Just follow these buses, figure out where they went. And then it looked like a job fair for cartels because cars would come up and people would get in and they would go. We helped to transport them into the interior.
And they've probably never been seen again.
They've never been seen again. Our intel guys that work with us, that give us information, this is not from any red side. This is not top secret stuff. This is our guys getting the information. We had 200 pages of the biometrics for the Tren de Aragua that were in that group. We could have done a lot more a lot earlier. State of Texas got the information. They did nothing with it until Aurora kicked off in Colorado. So we waited 8 months to do something about it.
So your policies will be keep the border secure, but also do something about the people that have come in that we need to get out.
The hybrid threat. And so that also includes House Bill 4914. Now, this is one that people should read about. This went before Abbott. And this was a House bill to plus up the Texas State Guard, not the National Guard, the State Guard. And there's a reason for it. If you only think in reactive sense, you will never be ahead of anything that's about to attack you. You will never be ahead of it. Impossible.
Right.
It's called left a bang thinking. Before the bomb goes off, let's be left a bang. So House Bill 4914 was based upon a lot of information that was from our group, from a guy named Ammon Blair, a great guy. There's a policy writer, somebody that I could probably get on your show for you. But he's written policy all the way to Trump, and he helps us out too on our policy. That House bill went to the governor's desk, could have been signed as an executive order years ago, and it didn't happen. So we've kept pushing it. And I actually testified at the Kerrville event with the Joint Committee on Emergencies. Yeah. And I tried to push it again, but I had 3 minutes and nobody had any questions.
3 minutes. That's a big problem with a lot of the way these media things.
So we got to be ahead of the curve. Yeah. So essentially, what I'm saying is, what that talks about on the site is exactly that.
Yeah. So you can find the detailed explanation of that on the site. But so when we put this out to the community, we had a huge number of people: Carrie, Elizabeth, Tony, Edie Ann, Alexia, all asked about your plan to abolish property taxes.
Right.
And I would add, Michelle and I would add our names to that.
Absolutely.
I find this super intriguing. And it looks like the numbers of your plan actually work. But tell our listeners about your plan to abolish property taxes.
And this is the best part about it. The way you ask the question, the way you pose the question, guess what? It's not my plan. Oh. It's the citizens of Texas.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, and this is how we did it. Because I network with a lot of people in the state, and I have for a long time, I went to the smartest and the brightest in taxes. So I guess I could probably say this guy's name, Michael Berenga. Okay, so he's out of San Antonio. He understands tax stuff. I think he was considering running for comptroller. Don't know if he is or he isn't. But I went to him, went to some other tax people. So I got 4 and then 5 now that have come on board, and they're developing it from all the different angles. So one of them looks at the school bonds, which are somewhat insolvent in many places, meaning that we can't cover the debt.
Sure.
Right. So that's one.
Right.
And so if we can cut the administrative costs, that's another one. The way the school, because a lot of this is based on school taxes.
I know. It's a huge.
So if we can cut this, if we can cut the administrative costs, which are 80%, so the majority of money that goes to school stuff, because we have 1,207 school districts, if we can just flip that around, maybe combine a few, maybe streamline it, we can cut a lot of that waste. Most of that money should be going to the classroom and to the teachers.
I agree with that.
Because most people tell me around the periphery in Texas, the periphery, not in Austin, not in Houston, they're fine with whatever they've got, appearingly. Mm-hmm. But if we can cut that, we cut a lot of it. Now, if it comes to we have to look at a possible VAT tax. A lot of people don't like that. Value-added tax, I get it. But for commodities and things that are not on the list of necessities, milk, bread, all those things,
sure.
If we added something there and pulled off of the fact that you have to pay, whether you have a job or not, the taxes on your house that you bought, and you're on a fixed income, and you don't have kids in school, yet you pay school taxes, and you homeschool, and yet you pay school taxes, there are ways to say, guess what? If you don't have kids in school, you don't pay for school taxes.
Well, we're talking about senior citizens. Having a veteran myself who is disabled, and he will never have to think about that. Here in the state of Texas, at least. But here we have senior citizens, like you said, are fixed income, 65 years older than that they're continuing. They will never ever own their home because the state of Texas has a part of it, and my property taxes are close to $18,000
every year, regardless.
You're paying a lien. It's unconstitutional.
Every year. Yeah. And the thing about it is, for me, my understanding is that the way the property taxes on all of the entities is they should come up with a budget, and then they say this is how much money we need, and then the rate is figured out based on that. And what we've had is the rate is set, and then the values continue to go up,
Correct.
and they just get a windfall every year, and then figure out how to spend it. And then the next year, their baseline is, okay, last year I'm making up a number. We spent $20 million last year because they had a big windfall, and now this year our budget has to be $23 million, and then the taxes just keep going up and up and up. So it's out of control.
One of the biggest things too, and it's part of this. There's probably 4 different corners, maybe 5, like I said, is the central appraisal districts, or the county appraisal districts. I work with a guy, and he's been doing this for a while, Johnson County, Craig Hunley. And he says, look, we own it now. When he says we, the citizens are 100% on that board. We're controlling it. The state, the way they put their control mechanism over them is to require them to reevaluate those appraisals at specific times and dates. The people that benefit from that is the local level, the counties. Okay, so that's who benefits from those central appraisal taxes for value of your home.
Sure.
We've got to get away from that process. We've got to give it back to the people. Maybe even abolish those boards. I don't know. But we've got to find a way to do it. And that's what this task force now that we've put together is doing. So a citizen-led governance, we talk about that on the website, is exactly that. It's a task force. One of the authorizations of a governor, I've read the job description, by the way, says you can appoint task forces just like they did on the river. Remember Guadalupe? Yeah. But they put Rick Perry on there. What does he have to do with that? We don't need former governors on there. We don't need lobbyists, and we don't need special interests. We need the smartest and the brightest in the state of Texas to take those boards, like the medical board that we talk about with Mary Talley, Dr. Bowden.
Yeah, well, I like your plan on the property taxes. One of the things you might look at, and it's probably the only thing I can think of that the government in California ever did right, was Prop 13, which was you buy your house at $400,000.
We've talked about that regularly.
That's what you are taxed on until the day you sell it, and if the next person pays $1 million, that's what they're taxed
Bingo.
on.
So the Prop 13 thing is something our guys are talking about. We'll probably add that to that PDF as we go, because these are the ideas that we need collectively. Then can have a tremendous decrease or to abolish. DeSantis is doing it in Florida.
Yeah, I know.
Governor Stitt just north of us in Oklahoma. They're working on it. I talked to both of their staffs.
I used to be a big proponent of our property tax system, and this for 20-something years ago. It seemed to make sense, but it's gotten so out of control.
It's out of control.
Yeah, I've had to sell properties because I can't afford to pay the property taxes.
Every time we have an emergency declaration in the state of Texas in a county, guess what? They start meeting and going higher.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
And there are counties that are not in emergencies right now. They're still considered.
This question is probably, or this line of questioning is probably the most hot button topic of any of the questions that we had, and that is medical freedom.
Right.
Over and over. So we have questions about vaccine. I'm just going to list some names off. Ashley, Ursula, Laura, Sarah, Lisa. They've all asked questions about medical freedom, about vaccines being required, medical use for cannabis.
Right.
So I'm going to start off the question with women's health care is complicated in Texas right now. How do you support women's access to care, especially in rural areas, while staying true to conservative values?
Right. Staying true to conservative values without overstepping my bounds in my personal beliefs of faith, because really that's the question you want to say. Just get the elephant out of the room here. Yeah. So I have a personal belief in that. From conception to natural death is what I believe is valued life. There's God-created life. That's just the way I believe. We allow the citizens to vote, but here's the problem with big government, and this is an overreach thing in government right now, from the feds down to us and from the state down to local. It is up to the citizens to decide what it is they want. If you put a proposition out there and they vote for it, okay, now that becomes a democratic process. We are a constitutional republic, so we have to give that back, that control. I'm always going to err on the side of giving more control back to the lowest level. And when I don't say low, I don't mean low in the sense of the hierarchy of needs or things. I'm talking about the lowest level down to the community. That's where I will err, or not err, always defer to. So that's why I would get rid of a Texas education, TEA, the Texas Medical Board, and have task forces that would decentralize. We always know when you centralize something, you ruin it. For women's care, for anything you want to talk about, you ruin it. So you got to decentralize those things and give it back to the people. That's, my third movie I like to watch is Gladiator. He gave the republic back to the people.
Now, what about medical use, cannabis medical use?
First of all, why is that such an important topic that it has to be? And it doesn't bother me. I'll talk directly about that. But it becomes the thing that's called the Hegelian dialectic. And a Hegelian dialectic is what pits people against each other.
Yeah.
So you see the lieutenant governor throwing a bag of gummies, and you see the other one supporting this because who are their lobbyists? I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. But it creates emotion. And when you create emotion, everybody loses, and something else is being synthesized. Right? So there is a need for medical use. I get it. But there also is a need that anything that's a controlled substance, and guess what? Schedule 1 on the federal level. I can't do anything about that. It's Schedule 1 all day long. Here's the problem. This is what gets synthesized. Post that. Kratom. You ever heard of it? Kratom?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. More dangerous than anything that's ever out there. You can go buy it right now.
I know. It's crazy. In Dallas, it was everywhere.
So there's no regulation on those things. Now, I'm not an overreach on regulation, but we're allowing those things to get missed. There is a need for hemp. Okay, my first cowboy rope was made of hemp, by the way. Yeah. You can build rebar with hemp. It's a lot lighter and it's a lot stronger. Okay, so there's reasons why we could keep that industry going just alone on that. Not saying cowboy ropes, but rebar. But also with regard to PTSD, and look, there are little old Christian ladies out there chewing on gummies so they can get their sleep. Yet they'll stand up and go, "Oh, I'm solely against all this." Wait a minute now, hold on.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. There are receptors in the human body that are specifically the tetrahydrocannabinoid receptor. Okay, now I've never used it, never touched it. I've been in the military my whole life. I have no reason to. But there are receptors for it. If God created us with those receptors, then did he create us for receptors for alcohol? No. But it's legal, right?
Yeah.
But I can test for the quantitative amount in your bloodstream so that you cannot operate a vehicle without me knowing that you're over the limit. I can't test for the other. But guess what? There are tests out there right now that you can. So if you find somebody, and I've worked as a reserve deputy before and pulled people over that were doing 25 and a 55 and say, you're going a little slow, and typically you can smell the marijuana when they So they just, they're going slow, man. Hey, dude, I'm just driving along. Leave me alone.
Did you stop Cheech?
Yeah, right.
Cheech.
So you have to say, okay, so now that we can test that, let's get it out there so we can test it. Because if you're operating under anything, Valium, it doesn't matter. Any kind of SSRI that, not an SSRI, but any kind of psychotrope that does affect your ability to operate a vehicle, we have to be able to test for that. But we got to be careful because I watched what happened in states like Oklahoma where much of the land was bought by Chinese, right?
Yeah.
And they got pot grows going, right? Which then, what does that do? It takes away from agriculture and the ability to produce our own food, which is huge in Texas. That should be the thing that's making people emotional, because when you go to corporate food and we're bringing it in from all these other countries, Brazilian beef, which could be laden with screwworm and lots of other deeper problems.
Yeah.
The fire hose of information I'm drinking from to become governor is amazing. I'm just amazed at how people get caught up in dialectics.
I want to kind of piggyback on the vaccine and
sure.
So one of our listeners, I can't remember which one it was, asked about how do you balance somebody's freedom.
That's the individual liberties.
Yeah,
right.
but specifically I want to ask you about this one. So one parent believes that their kids should not have the vaccine for, say, measles. And another parent says, I want any kids that are around my kids to have been vaccinated by measles. So how do we, in the interest of getting along and becoming closer instead of separating like we are, how do you address that as governor?
I would say day one, and I've already said this on several shows, day one, I would put a moratorium on all mRNA products in the state until we can truly identify whether they're safe or not. Because mRNA technology, we're not talking about messenger RNA. We're talking about modified. That's what the M stands for, modified RNA, which is dangerous because it's exactly what we went through with the COVID thing. It's exactly what they want to use with different types of vaccines to switch over them, the flu vaccine. We've got to be careful with that stuff. Nobody wants to talk about it until it's created so many deaths to then we can talk about it. This is what our problem was during the COVID vaccine era, especially with the military when I was forced to give them my troops. I didn't.
Right.
But that's why I lost my job.
Yeah.
But there needs to be enough people to have moral courage enough to stand up and say, no, until we know it's safe, I will not push it. Now, I believe, as RFK believes, Jr., that there should be no mandates upon those. Right? If you don't want your kids to be with that person, then find a school somewhere that you can have all the kids that are fully vaccinated with all 55 vaccines or whatever it is. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's just not safe.
Yeah.
Because there is such a thing as shedding.
Yeah.
And if you're using an mRNA product, they will shed. And that there is such a thing.
Okay.
So I feel like this was a very important question. It was a long-winded question, so I had to cut it down a little bit, but it's kind of going back to the original question I asked you. Given the current restrictions in Texas, how do you believe the state should balance protecting unborn life and ensuring women have access to safe and timely medical care, especially in cases of emergency or non-viable pregnancies? Now, this was in addition, she said, this was from a listener.
Yeah.
Do you support exceptions for rape, incest, or life-threatening complications? And do Texas physicians have enough legal clarity to provide that care without fear of persecution?
They don't have enough legal clarity. They actually have a litigious and legislative labyrinth of laws that they have to deal with on that. There is no one that can comprehend it, which allows for somebody to use an ICD code, so the code for the diagnosis, to say they have an ectopic pregnancy when it's a viable pregnancy. And this is something Mary Talley Bowden has been talking about. Some of these hospitals are using this, not hospitals, but providers are using that code even though it's a viable pregnancy. Now, and what are the odds? What is the when you talk about making legislation for the whole to allow those seams and gaps to take place for the whole, when the incest rate pregnancies are minuscule. So you're making major policy based on something that is so minuscule that again falls underneath that category. It's not a dialectic, but it's allowing a seam and gap of something that is chaotic in the sense that in the hearts and minds of someone that believes this is the only way, women's choice. I get it. They have a choice. You're right. They have to deal with their maker. From Pete Chambers to you, I'm telling you, they have to deal with their maker. It's not. I am not the maker. I don't get to be the final arbiter of that. So I have to give a policy that truly is less government overreach, but also, and very clear, very clear. And to go in and make sure if we are calling something what it is, because that's, a lot of people breaking the law right now on that. And there are places in Texas that do this. And this is a scary thing because we claim to say we don't allow for, just the abortion in Texas. Okay, we say we don't do that. Yet we allow for bodies from these children that are brought into Texas to be buried here, right? So how do we do that? How do we justify that? Well, somebody's making money in every one of these transactions. So we have to follow the money. Anytime I deal with something that's either illicit, immoral, or unethical, I have to follow the money to see who's benefiting from that. So it doesn't fully answer the question, but what it does is it gives a clarity to it. And that is exactly it. Because no matter what side you say, it's going to create emotion. And I get it.
Yeah.
It's funny that you touched on this a couple times. There are all these little hot button things that don't affect people's lives in any way, but they become like that's the hill they're going to die on.
Yes.
But 100%, could you say, is it life-threatening? Yes, I've had to deal with those myself. I mean, the last child that I delivered was in the mountains of Pakistan that was a breech baby, and all I had was my hands. Now, that's life-threatening for both the mother and the child. Praise the Lord that everything turned out okay on that one. But I mean, I'm just with a medic bag to stop bleeding, and I've got a lady that's going to full-term breech delivery. But that's
a chapter in your book for the future.
And I'm thinking these guys are going to get rid of me if I don't help them.
We didn't have any questions about this, but this is intriguing to me, and I've thought about this for a long time. Term limits for career politicians.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. So give us a little background on why you came up with that and how you'd effectively get that put in place if you became governor.
I didn't say that I was going to make that a policy. I'm just saying that's what it is for me.
Yeah, okay.
And do I believe it needs to be a policy? Yes.
Yes.
I used to liaise on a little bit up on the Capitol Hill with the Speaker of the House as a military guy. And he had been in there for a long time in politics. And I used to argue with him all day long about term limits. Okay, now, do I believe that we should? Yes. Is it something that we can consider a policy? Yes. Especially in the government. I'm the governor's position. Because as smart people have told me, educated, well-versed, wise people have said, politics hasn't changed. But the country has. It's gotten stale. It's complacent. It's status quo. We see the results of it right now. Even though you don't see it because everybody's comfortable and still can go to Starbucks and do all the things they want to do, it only takes one event to throw this country, this state, into turmoil. If the let's just use one example. I don't like to scare people, but I want people to understand this is a problem. If the components that are in the batteries to help support the Texas grid. There are batteries in the ground right now to control the grid. But those components are made in China. If China wants to turn those off, they can. Okay, as a guy that does counterterrorism, I can tell you that's a concern. A grid down scenario in Texas, you remember Winter Storm Uri?
Yeah, we do.
I was working in New Braunfels bringing water into them with the Guard. If we have something like that, it shuts us down for 72 plus hours. Some places will be completely chaotic.
Yeah.
Now, other places like Dripping Springs and y'all didn't get chaotic. I was here there, and the last storm wasn't as bad. Everybody just kind of got together and helped each other, in Wimberley at least.
I played dominoes and drank a lot of champagne.
There you go. Hey, as long as somebody brings you champagne.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I had a question, and this is from somebody near and dear to me, and for some reason he thinks this is the most important question that he wanted to ask you. This is from my husband, Todd. What do you think of John Thune?
I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of, I'm not let's just say I'm not a fan. I don't have a lot of bad to say, but I just don't like the wishy-washiness of certain people in those positions. And I have a saying, and I said it on a show once. They said, you don't sit on a fence very much on topics. And I don't until you convince me otherwise. I'm willing to dialogue with anybody. I won't dialectic, but I'll dialogue all day long. And I said, have you seen the fences in Texas? They're made of barbed wire, right? We don't sit on fences, and I get it that there's wood fences. But, yeah, not a big fan. He's just been too
he feels like they've slow-walked appointments, and he doesn't understand why they don't recess Senate to make appointments.
Specifically for that reason, yeah, I agree there 100%. But the higher up you get, as I've learned now, I've spent a lot of time in Capitol Hill. I hated to, but I had to be up there working. It is the higher you get, the more that you can be bought by something.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not talking about just specific a crime. I'm using bought with quotes. And there are 4 reasons why people do this stuff. And I used to work in Guantanamo Bay, so I've interviewed some of the most interesting people in the world.
Can you waterboard Steve for me later?
No, not authorized, ma'am.
That's okay.
Neither confirm nor deny.
I'll buy you a brisket taco.
But just remember this principle and use it on everything that you ever wonder. Always remember, follow the money. That's number 1. But this one, MICE, M-I-C-E. The reason people do things: money, ideology, coercion, and ego. That's it. They're always going to be under one of those 4. We all have an ego. What I tell my troops, I used to, and I try to exude this, was to exude confidence and demonstrate competence. If somebody mistakes that for ego, it's on them.
Yeah.
Now, we all have an ego, but money, I've been thrown money at, they didn't throw it to me yet, but asked, would you consider this job or that job to get out of this race? There's money there because I'm not bought. Okay. Ideology. Well, my Lord and Savior is, who gives me my final, decision-making process. But somebody once said to me, well, that's a talking point. And I said back to him, well, now you're on the fighting side of me. Because that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And then coercion, they got something on you, they're going to make you quit or do something.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of those people up there in D.C.
With
ego. Ego is really number 1 up there.
I think a lot of those people go to serve and they have good intentions, but the system just poisons you and it makes you, you want to be there forever and maintain that power, and they stop serving the people that brought them there in the first
I totally agree.
You kind of piggybacking on that. So how are you funding your campaign? Where's the money going to come?
We are completely grassroots. I mean, it is, our first filing was on the scale of Texas gubernatorial race, pathetic, if you were just to look at those numbers. But in-kind donations we can receive as well. And now those things are coming in, so they can help us with filming things and getting media out there. And getting on some large stream media, getting things out on the marketing side.
Yeah.
We just didn't have the funding to do it.
Well, this is a question from a listener too. Will you or have you accepted any money from foreign lobby groups? And will you spend any state funds if you become governor on foreign aid?
Okay, I get this question asked every day about 20 times on X and Truth and all this stuff, and I answer the same way every time. I wish I could just put a billboard.
Answer it differently.
Well, no, it is this. This is real simple. I wore 1 flag on my uniform. I had 1 flag on my body armor, Texas. That was it. The only 2 flags I ever carried. I've bled for those flags, and I'll protect that Constitution, both state and federal. I cannot accept money from me personally, from any outside entity. I didn't fight for any outside entity. I cannot. I will not. People ask me specific about AIPAC. I got no dog in the hunt out what's going on in the Middle East right now. I understand it. I got my personal opinions, but I do not put that into the political side of the picture. Because once you start doing that, you start feeling, I've seen it, owned.
Yep.
I had a billionaire that came up to me very beginning of this thing. Billionaire. Probably about 500-600 million. Came up to me and said, this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to do. And I said, ma'am, this is how rhinos get started. I will not take any of your money.
Well, good for you for having integrity.
That will not be the last time you have that conversation, because that's how the world works.
Well, that's why we're getting it out now on these types of mediums, because they need to know.
Yeah.
Right.
So the primary is March 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Day after Independence Day.
Yeah, there you go. So can people? I've got a couple more questions, but
sure.
Can people donate on your website, which
right
is
there. Donate on the far right. DocPeteChambers.org.
And you can find out all the same issues and kind of goes more in depth on your website there.
And more's coming. Yes, ma'am.
And you have so many other PR events that you're participating in. You're actually living here and doing another podcast as well.
Yeah. Right.
But you're very active on X. You're not on Facebook. Are you on Instagram?
We just got on Facebook just recently. Like this week.
Okay.
Yeah, we're up.
And are you on Instagram?
We're on Instagram.
Okay.
Somebody else is running those for me. I can't run them all. I don't know
Are you
how.
on TikTok? You doing any dances?
I've got three kids to volunteer, but I'm not doing that. Yeah.
We had a couple people ask us about gun rights. There's a big movement across the country to take away people's guns.
If they come to one of the live events, they'd see me because usually I take my jacket off and they know what I feel about that.
But how are you going to, if you become governor, how are you going to protect people's gun rights?
Just adhere to the current laws that we have under the Constitution, both the state and federal. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not being flippant. I'm just saying that's that easy. Yeah. It's why the border problem happened. We didn't enforce the laws. We just didn't enforce the laws.
Yeah.
So one of the last questions I have kids that are all in their 20s. Why does this election mean something to them? Why should they vote for you?
Oh my gosh.
Why should my 25-year-old daughter, who, kind of knows surface level.
Do you want to buy a house when you get married or prior to? Do you want to own something and actually have sovereignty given to you? Now, I'm not giving you anything. Don't ever let the government trick you into believing that I'm giving you your sovereignty. You have it. What you need to do is vote for me so that I can break the mold of the system that is slowly usurping those freedoms from you. I've got a grandchild. He's 3. I want him to have the same ability to have what I had, the ability to go all the way to the top if I wanted to. And I made it to the top of the military world. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with that. I had 48-headed longhorn that I was going to retire and take care of, but I sold them all so I could do counter-human trafficking. That sometimes somebody's got to step in the gap. Somebody has to step in the gap. You want somebody that's going to be transparent? And I'll say this. Imagine if you're a young person and you get to watch Texas, let's call it T-SPAN, and you're watching me meet with a lobbyist in the governor's office. Well, they don't usually film those. That's right. We're going to have something called Lobbyist TV. So that way you can watch on T-SPAN, whatever you want to call it, so that you know that there's truth, right? That's the number one thing I hear from kids. We're going to the TPUSA event. We were invited before Charlie was killed. We're going to be there with those kids, and we're going to then continue, because that's why so many young kids are coming on board. They just want to see a leader that's real, somebody that's authentic. I'm not pretending.
And not a politician.
No.
Yeah.
Furthest from.
So my last question for you, how old are you?
60 years old.
60 years old. You're obviously in great shape. Former Green Beret, infantry. How you taking care of yourself now?
Just a little bit every day.
Yeah.
Just something.
Yeah.
Now, there's no routine because my routine right now is screwed, but I get out of the truck and I do push-ups, and then sometimes I
That's
get
what
back
you were doing out there in the parking lot. I was
I
wondering
came
what
all
you were doing.
sweaty. That's it. I think whatever it is.
I think that's
something
important.
every day.
Yeah, you know it. You know it's
go for a long
to take
walk.
Care of yourself.
I mean, I get a rucksack on still, and I put it on. I don't do the same amount of weight, but I just go out and walk for about an hour.
Wow, that's great. Well, I want to thank you for your service and wish you the best of luck in this race. I know it's going to be competitive, but I've really enjoyed this time with you, and I think your leadership style and the ideas that you have would be really good for Texas.
And I want to promise right here, I'm not letting you out of this room, that if you become governor of the state of Texas, that you will come back here and you will sit with us.
I will. And you know what? I'll shake your hand on that first of all. But also, here's the deal. I should not be sitting in an office 24/7 or whatever hours in a day. My job is to literally get out and continue. I'm not going to get out and go. That's why the problem with the term limits, because day one they start, campaigning. I have to just continue to see what's going on and talk to people. So when my troops are on the border doing something, I'll be down there with them. Not all the time, but I'll continue to go around and be real. Because how can you find out things from the ground without listening?
Otherwise, it gets filtered through multiple people. You may not get the real story.
Right. Then you get a bunch of people, as they're talking to governor chambers, and you say, okay, we got questions today, and here's what we want. And I'm mad at you. You wore a felt hat before the end of the year when you shouldn't have been. You've been wearing a straw. But whatever question you got, go ahead and ask it. Yeah. I'm willing to take the hit. That's what I'm doing now. Believe me, there's some people are not as kind as you guys. I mean, you're straightforward, but some people are pretty vitriolic, and I don't mind. I'll take the hits.
Okay, and last question that I was telling Steve I was going to ask. Here you have, you're very polished, but you're also very gritty, and I love that about you. So, what is the one skeleton in your closet you can tell us right now before you go on Joe Rogan?
I would love to tell you this one, because this one came up at True Texas Project. They said, "We heard you live in a trailer park." I said, "Yeah, I do." "You don't have a home?" "Well, I did, but I got divorced, a long time ago. But I lived in a trailer because I was running up and down from from McAllen all the way to Del Rio and sometimes to Big Bend.
Yeah,
I'd have to be living somewhere, and rather than cause the taxpayers to pay more, I just took my trailer with me and lived in the barracks parking lot.
It's not the Holiday Inn Express,
right?
You know?
So it's probably one of the more luxurious places you stayed compared to your service.
Yeah, there's a couple of pundits that are out there that don't like me. One out of Houston, one out of Fort Worth, and they say, "Well, he's a vagabond, he's a grifter," and I'm like, "Listen,
gypsy."
I'm still doing counter human trafficking, so sometimes we're moving again. But here's the deal: this war chest that we get together. Guess what? I am not putting it into the Pete Chambers Trust Fund.
Yeah.
This is going to go back to counter human trafficking, which should be on the top 10 list in Texas. It currently isn't on the crime side, but it will be.
Yeah.
Well, we covered a lot of ground today,
we did.
and we so appreciate it. We know that we were rapid firing you with just questions.
I like that.
No, I really appreciate your time today, and it's been fascinating. I know we could go for 3 hours, but you're running out of time, and we appreciate you coming.
You and me both.
So, but we wish you the best of luck.
I'll be on with Mary Talley here in a couple hours.
Okay,
wonderful.
Good. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Out.
Good job, Doc.
Thank you so much. We're going to get a
Yeah.
picture of the three of us really quick. I know you've got to bounce out of here.
Fun. Oh, yeah, we're good.
Gosh, we are so honored.